The night Elena Hart was thrown out of her own home, Manhattan was glittering like it always did, cold, bright, and completely indifferent. Rain slid down the glass walls of the penthouse on West 72nd Street, blurring the skyline into streaks of white and gold. Inside, everything was spotless. Too spotless. The marble floors shined. The designer couch sat untouched. The silence felt deliberate, like the apartment itself had already decided she no longer belonged. Elena stood barefoot near the door, one hand gripping the handle of a small suitcase, the other resting protectively on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, the way her doctor had taught her when panic threatened to tighten around her chest. Victor Langford didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You should go," he said calmly, adjusting the cuff of his tailored shirt as if this were a business meeting instead of the end of a marriage. "This situation is no longer appropriate." Elena blinked, certain she had misheard him. "Victor, it's after midnight. It's raining. I don't even have my shoes." "That's not my problem," he replied, his tone flat. Final. Behind him, leaning casually against the kitchen island, stood Madeline Cross. Silk dress, perfect hair, a faint smile that never quite reached her eyes. She watched the scene like a guest enjoying a private performance. Elena's throat burned. "I'm carrying your child." And froze. Victor's jaw tightened for half a second, then smoothed out again. "And you're making me look unstable in front of people who matter. Investors don't like chaos, Elena." Chaos. The word hit harder than the rain. "I just need my medical folder," Elena said quietly. "My insurance card, my medication." Victor opened a drawer, pulled out a clear plastic folder, and tossed it toward the door. It hit the floor, papers sliding out like discarded receipts. "Take it," he said. "And don't come back until you've learned how to behave." Madeline let out a soft laugh, not loud, not cruel on the surface, just enough. Elena bent down slowly, her back aching, her vision blurring as she gathered the papers. That was when her phone buzzed in her hand. Declined. 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 3 notifications from her bank, her credit card, her joint account. She looked up, her voice barely holding together. "Victor, the account. It's frozen. Thanks for watching. If you not a sport and $1 desire." He met her eyes for the first time that night. There was no guilt there, only calculation. "I took precautions," he said. "You're emotional right now. It's safer this way." Safer. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust. Victor stepped aside, making space not for her, but for the end of her life as she knew it. As Elena stepped into the hallway, barefoot and shaking, the door closed behind her with a soft, decisive click. And in that moment, standing alone in the dark, with nowhere to go, Elena realized something terrifying. Victor hadn't just kicked her out, he had planned this. Elena Hart stood frozen in the hallway for several seconds after the door closed. The sound wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, just a clean, final click. But it echoed in her head like a verdict. The hallway lights flickered on automatically, revealing beige walls, abstract art she had never really looked at before, and a patterned carpet that suddenly felt foreign beneath her bare feet. She stared at the door in front of her, half expecting it to open again, half hoping Victor would step out and say this was all a mistake. He didn't. Her phone buzzed again. Declined. 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 Elena lowered herself slowly onto the suitcase, careful not to put too much pressure on her abdomen. Her hands trembled as she opened her banking app. The joint account balance was 0, not low, 0. Her personal savings gone. The credit card she used for groceries, prenatal vitamins, doctor visits locked. She swallowed hard and pressed the elevator button. While she waited, memories crept in uninvited. Victor's voice, months earlier, telling her not to worry about money. "I'll handle everything. Focus on the baby." The way he had insisted on merging accounts to simplify things. The gentle pressure when he'd asked her to quit her job because stress wasn't good for pregnancy. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Inside, mirrors lined the walls. Elena caught her reflection and barely recognized herself. Hair pulled into a loose, messy knot, eyes swollen. One arm wrapped around her belly like a shield. She looked small. Exposed. When the elevator reached the lobby, the doorman looked up from his desk. Concern flashed across his face. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Elena forced a smile that didn't fool either of them. "I'm fine," she lied. Outside, the rain had turned heavier. Traffic hissed along the street, yellow cabs blurred past. Manhattan moved on, unaware that her entire life had just collapsed between 2 floors of glass and marble. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. Every step hurt. Not just physically, though her lower back screamed and her ankles ached. It hurt knowing she had nowhere to go. No car, no keys, no access to the penthouse garage. Victor had thought of everything. She ducked into a small coffee shop to escape the rain. The warmth hit her immediately, along with the smell of espresso and baked pastries. A few late-night customers glanced up, then quickly looked away. Elena ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. When she tapped her card, the cashier hesitated. "I'm sorry," the woman said softly. "It didn't go through." Heat rushed to Elena's face. "That's okay," she whispered, stepping aside. She wrapped her arms around herself and sat at an empty table, pretending she didn't care. Her phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a bank alert. It was a missed call, from a name she hadn't spoken to in years. Daniel, her older brother. And suddenly, for the first time since the door had closed behind her, Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. Not relief. Hope. Elena stared at her phone for several long seconds, rain tapping softly against the coffee shop window beside her. The name on the screen felt unreal, like something pulled from another lifetime. Daniel Hart. Her older brother. The one she hadn't spoken to in nearly 3 years. She let the call go to voicemail, panic tightening her chest. Daniel didn't call without a reason. Not after the argument, not after she chose Victor. Her phone buzzed again, almost immediately. This time, she answered. "Where are you?" Daniel's voice came through sharp and steady, with no greeting and no judgment. Elena swallowed. "I'm downtown, near Broadway." There was a pause, not hesitation, calculation. "Stay where you are. Don't move. I'm coming." "I don't need." "You do," he cut in. "And you don't have time to argue." The line went dead. Elena sat there, hands wrapped around an empty cup, heart pounding. Part of her wanted to run. Another part, the exhausted, frightened part, stayed glued to the chair. She pressed a hand against her belly, feeling a slow, reassuring movement beneath her palm. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. 2 men walked in, rain still clinging to their jackets. Daniel looked exactly the same and completely different. Same dark hair, same controlled posture, but his face was harder now, lines etched by years of courtrooms and bad news. Beside him stood Noah, her younger brother, broader in the shoulders, quieter, eyes scanning the room before landing on her. Noah reached her first. He didn't ask permission. He crouched in front of her and spoke softly. "Hey, Lenny. You okay?" That was all it took. Elena's composure shattered. She nodded once, then again, then pressed her lips together as tears finally spilled over. Noah didn't hug her right away. He waited until her breathing slowed, until the shaking eased. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "Tell me exactly what happened," he said. So she did. She told them about the locked accounts, the canceled insurance, the folder tossed at her feet, the door closing. She didn't dramatize it. She didn't have to. Daniel's jaw tightened with every sentence. Noah's hands curled into fists on his knees. When she finished, silence settled between them. Daniel spoke first. "Did you sign anything recently?" Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "Any documents Victor asked you to sign. Bank forms, post-nuptial agreements, powers of attorney." Her stomach dropped. "Yes, months ago. He said it was standard. I didn't really read." Daniel raised a hand. "It's okay. I just need the truth." Noah leaned closer. "Elena, listen to me. This isn't a fight you can cry your way out of. If Victor planned this, then he's already protecting himself." Elena's voice trembled. "So what do I do?" Daniel looked her straight in the eye. "First, you don't go back. Second, you stop trusting him. And third," he paused, "you let us see how deep this goes." Elena nodded slowly. She didn't know it yet, but the moment she answered that call, the balance of power had already begun to shift. And Victor Langford had no idea what was coming. Daniel didn't raise his voice. That was what made it worse. They were sitting in his apartment now, a narrow but immaculate place on the Upper West Side. Law books lined one wall. A single desk lamp cast a clean white circle over the coffee table where Elena had placed the plastic folder Victor had thrown at her. "Walk me through the day he asked you to sign," Daniel said calmly. Elena stared at her hands. Her fingers were still swollen, her wedding ring heavy and useless on her skin. "It was after my second trimester appointment," she began. "I was exhausted. I'd been throwing up all morning." Noah leaned against the counter, arms crossed, listening without interrupting. "Victor picked me up in the Mercedes," Elena continued. "He said we were grabbing lunch, but instead he took me to his bank. Private office, glass walls, everyone smiling." Daniel nodded once. He already knew where this was going. "He said the paperwork was routine," Elena whispered. "Something about restructuring assets before the baby came. He said stress was bad for the pregnancy. He said I trusted him, didn't I?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Daniel reached for the folder and spread the papers out carefully, like evidence at trial. His eyes moved fast. Too fast. "Did he tell you this gave him sole control over all liquid assets?" Daniel asked. Elena's head snapped up. "What?" Noah pushed off the counter and stepped closer. Daniel slid one page toward her. "This clause," he said, tapping it with his finger. "It authorizes Victor to freeze or redirect funds if he believes you're a financial or reputational risk." Elena felt the room tilt. That's not legal." "It can be," Daniel replied evenly, "if you signed it without independent counsel." Silence dropped like a weight. "I was pregnant," Elena said weakly. "He told me not to worry." "And he counted on that," Noah said quietly. "He didn't just plan your exit, he engineered it." Elena's breathing sped up. Her hand flew to her stomach. Noah noticed instantly. "Hey," he said, softer now. "Slow breaths. You're okay." Daniel pushed the papers aside. "There's more." Elena's eyes filled again. "More bad news?" "More leverage," Daniel corrected. He pulled out his laptop and opened a file. "Victor's business loans," he said. "Multiple, stacked, all approved within the last year." "So?" Elena asked. "So," Noah cut in. "Most of them are tied to one thing." Daniel turned the screen toward her. "Your marriage." Elena stared. "What do you mean?" "Stable domestic partnership," Daniel said. "Low-risk profile. Family man. That's how he sold himself to the banks." "You weren't just his wife, Elena." Noah finished the sentence. "You were his collateral." The words hit harder than the night he'd thrown her out. Elena's chest tightened. Tears spilled freely now. "He used me." "Yes," Daniel said. "And the moment you became inconvenient, he cut you loose." Elena wiped her face, shaking. "So what happens now?" Daniel closed the laptop slowly. "Now," he said, "we stop reacting." Noah met her eyes. "And we start digging." Elena looked down at her belly, then back up at her brothers. For the first time since that door had closed behind her, she felt something unfamiliar rise beneath the fear. Resolve. By morning, Elena hadn't slept. She sat at Daniel's kitchen table, wrapped in a borrowed sweater, staring at the city outside the window as gray light crept between the buildings. Manhattan looked the same as always. Busy, important, unforgiving. It felt cruel that the world could continue so smoothly while her life had been dismantled overnight. Daniel had been awake since dawn. He stood by the counter with his MacBook open, sleeves rolled up, coffee untouched beside him. Numbers filled the screen: spreadsheets, loan summaries, transaction histories. To Elena, it all looked like a foreign language. To Daniel, it was a story. And the deeper he read, the darker his expression became. "Noah," Daniel said quietly, "come look at this." Noah stepped in from the hallway, pulling on his jacket. He leaned over Daniel's shoulder, eyes narrowing as he scanned the data. "That's not just aggressive borrowing," Noah said. "That's reckless." Elena's heart sank. "What does that mean?" Daniel turned the laptop toward her. "It means Victor isn't just wealthy. He's leveraged. He's living on borrowed confidence." He clicked through several files. "These loans, 3 banks, 2 private lenders, 1 insurance-backed facility, all approved within 14 months. Elena frowned. "That's when I got pregnant." "Exactly," Daniel said. Noah pointed at the screen. "Look at the risk notes. Every single one mentions the same thing. It's another 4, as that would just to the portway." Daniel read it aloud, his voice flat. "Marital stability, low volatility household, strong domestic foundation." Elena felt sick. They approved millions, Daniel continued, because you made him look safe. Noah straightened. And if that image cracks, so does everything built on top of it. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth. So when he kicked me out, he was protecting the narrative, Daniel said. Not the money, the image. A sharp pain twisted low in Elena's abdomen. She sucked in a breath. Noah noticed instantly. Okay, pause. He pulled out a chair. Sit back, slow breathing, in through your nose. Elena obeyed, panic mixing with anger, with disbelief. He canceled my insurance, she said softly. I thought it was to punish me. Daniel shook his head. No. It was to force you to disappear quietly. Sick wife. Emotional breakdown. No public scene. Elena's eyes filled with tears. And if I had? Noah answered instead. Then he would have kept everything. Quote. Silence settled over the room. Daniel closed the laptop. There's more, he said. Something he didn't count on. Elena looked up. What? You, Daniel replied. Not leaving the city, not vanishing, and calling us. Noah nodded. Victor thinks you're isolated, that you won't fight. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. I don't even know how. Daniel met her gaze. You don't need to yet. Right now, you need to understand one thing. He leaned forward. Victor Langford didn't throw you out because you're weak, Daniel said. He threw you out because you're dangerous. Elena felt the words settle deep in her chest. And for the first time, fear began to turn into something else. Something sharp. Victor Langford stood in front of the full-length mirror in the master bedroom, adjusting the knot of his tie with practiced precision. The penthouse was quiet again, exactly how he liked it. Clean, controlled, no emotion leaking into the air. On the bed behind him lay a black tuxedo jacket, freshly pressed. On the dresser sat his Rolex, face gleaming under the soft lights. Tonight mattered. Tonight was the night he would reset the narrative. From the kitchen, Madeline Cross watched him with a satisfied smile, swirling a glass of red wine. You're sure she won't show up? She asked casually. Victor didn't turn around. She won't, he said. She doesn't have the spine for it. Madeline raised an eyebrow. Pregnant women can be unpredictable. That's exactly why no one will believe her, Victor replied. If she says anything now, she looks unstable, emotional, desperate. He slipped the watch onto his wrist and checked the time. The Plaza Gala started in 90 minutes. Madeline crossed the room and rested a hand on his shoulder. And after tonight? She asked. People will assume I'm permanent. Victor smiled faintly. That's the idea. End quote. Across the city, Elena sat silently on Daniel's couch, her hands folded over her belly as she stared at her phone. She had been staring at the same message for 10 minutes. Gala tonight, the Plaza Hotel. Victor Langford, host committee. Her name wasn't there. They're going public, Noah said quietly from the doorway. Elena nodded. I know. Daniel closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. Victor wants witnesses, he said. He wants pictures. He wants proof that you're gone and she's replaced you. Elena swallowed. If I don't go, he wins. Noah stepped forward. If you do go, it won't be to beg. Daniel looked at her carefully. You don't owe him a confrontation. You don't owe anyone a scene. Elena finally lifted her eyes. They were tired but clear. He canceled my insurance, she said. He tried to make me disappear. Daniel held her gaze. Then if you show up, it's on your terms. Silence stretched between them. What if I freeze? Elena asked quietly. What if I can't speak? Then you won't, Noah said. You don't need to say much. Truth has a way of speaking for itself when it's timed right. Daniel nodded. This isn't about revenge, he added. It's about preventing him from rewriting history. Elena took a slow breath. She imagined Victor standing under chandeliers, smiling for cameras, pretending she never existed. Pretending her child didn't exist. I'm not going to yell, she said. I'm not going to beg. Good, Daniel replied, because desperation is what he expects. Noah picked up his jacket. We'll be there. Not beside you, not behind you, nearby. Elena stood slowly, one hand braced against the table. Her body ached, her heart pounded. Fear still lived inside her, but it no longer owned her. Across Manhattan, Victor Langford stepped into his waiting Mercedes, convinced the night would bury his past. He had no idea it was about to expose it. Elena's phone rang just after sunset. She was standing in Daniel's bathroom, staring at her reflection, trying to smooth down the front of a simple navy maternity dress. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Just something clean, something that reminded her she was still a person and not a problem to be managed. The screen lit up. Victor. Her heart lurched so hard she had to grip the sink. For a moment, she considered letting it ring. She knew this could be another trap, another calculated move. But something inside her, the part that still carried memories of late-night laughter and hands resting gently on her belly, hesitated. She answered, "Elena," Victor said softly, his voice warm, almost familiar. "Thank God. I was hoping you'd pick up." She closed her eyes. "What do you want?" There was a pause, perfectly timed. "I want to fix this," he said. "I handled things badly. I was under pressure. Investors, advisors, you know how it is." She didn't respond. "I shouldn't have asked you to leave like that," Victor continued. "You're my wife, and you're carrying my child." The words landed like a punch and a caress at the same time. Elena's throat tightened. "Then why did you cancel my insurance?" Another pause, shorter this time. "That was temporary," he said smoothly. "A misunderstanding. It's already being sorted out." Daniel, standing in the doorway, met her eyes. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. "Come home tonight," Victor said. "We'll talk privately. No lawyers, no drama. I'll take care of you." Elena pressed her hand against her stomach as a slow ache rolled through her. Fear and longing twisted together until she couldn't tell them apart. "Victor," she whispered, "I don't feel safe." "That's because you're emotional," he replied gently. "You're overwhelmed. Pregnancy does that. Let me help you." Daniel shook his head slightly. "I just want my family back," Victor added. "Before things get ugly." That was when Elena heard it. Not in his words, but underneath them. The threat. "If I come back," she asked quietly, "what happens after tonight?" Victor exhaled, as if relieved she was finally being reasonable. "You'll stand by me," he said. "Smile. Let people see we're solid. Then we'll handle everything else." Everything else. The documents. The accounts. The silence. Elena's eyes filled with tears. For a brief, terrifying moment, she almost said yes, almost chose comfort over truth, almost stepped back into the cage he had built so carefully. Then Noah's voice came from the other room, calm, low. "Elena, put it on speaker." She did. The silence on the other end stretched longer than before. "Victor," Elena said, her voice steadier now, "I'm not coming home." His tone shifted instantly. "Don't do this." "I already did," she replied. "You closed the door first." The line went dead. Elena lowered the phone, her hands shaking, tears streaming freely now. Daniel stepped forward and placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You almost broke," he said quietly. She nodded. "I know. But you didn't," Noah said from behind her. Elena took a deep breath. And somewhere across the city, Victor Langford realized too late that his last easy move had failed. The apartment fell quiet after the call ended. Elena sat on the edge of the couch, phone still pressed to her palm, as if Victor might somehow speak again through the dead screen. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. She wasn't crying now. That was the strange part. The tears had stopped, replaced by a hollow ache that made everything feel sharp and distant at the same time. Daniel broke the silence first. "He expected you to come back," he said evenly. "That was supposed to be his reset." Elena nodded slowly. "He sounded so reasonable. In some Avora. Dakes. That's how he controls the story," Noah replied. He had moved to the window, scanning the street below out of habit. "He never raises his voice. He makes you doubt your own reactions." Elena hugged her arms around herself. For a second, I almost believed him. Daniel didn't look surprised. "That's because he was telling you exactly what you wanted to hear." Noah turned from the window. "Which is why you need to hear what he really says when he thinks no one's listening." Dagon. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Elena frowned. "What is that?" Noah hesitated for the first time that night. "Before you answer, I need you to understand something. This is going to hurt." Daniel glanced at him. "You're sure?" Noah nodded. "I checked the consent laws, one party. We're covered." Elena's stomach tightened. "Just play it." Noah tapped the screen. Victor's voice filled the room, clear, confident, stripped of warmth. She's emotional right now, he was saying. Pregnant women are unpredictable. I just need her calm enough to sign the revised document. After that, it doesn't matter where she stays. A pause. Then Madeline's voice, amused. And the baby? Another pause. Short, dismissive. The child guarantees compliance, Victor said. She won't risk looking unstable in public. Worst case, she disappears quietly. I'll handle the narrative. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. Her hand flew to her belly as if she could shield the baby from the words already spoken. The recording continued. She thinks the insurance cancellation was an accident, Victor said. If she gets scared enough, she'll do whatever I ask. The audio cut off. Silence crashed down hard and unforgiving. Elena stared at the floor, her vision blurring. He wasn't trying to fix anything, she whispered. He was trying to finish it. Daniel's voice was steady but cold. Yes. What? Noah crouched in front of her. Look at me, Elena. She lifted her eyes slowly. That call wasn't an apology, Noah said. It was a retrieval attempt. Her lips trembled. He was going to make me smile next to him tonight. And then erase you again, Daniel added. Elena swallowed, something inside her, breaking cleanly in two. The last thread of doubt snapped. The man she married was gone, or maybe he had never existed at all. She straightened her back. No, she said quietly. He doesn't get to do that. Daniel watched her carefully. Are you sure? Elena nodded once. Firm. I'm going to the gala. Noah exhaled slowly. Then we do this right. Elena placed both hands over her belly, feeling a steady movement beneath her skin. For my child, she said, he doesn't get to rewrite us. And somewhere deep inside, fear finally gave way to something far more dangerous. Elena arrived at the Plaza Hotel just after 8. The entrance glowed under rows of warm lights, reflecting off wet pavement and polished stone. Valets hurried back and forth, guiding black cars into place as guests stepped out in tailored suits and evening gowns. Laughter floated through the air, light and careless, as if nothing in the world could possibly be wrong. Elena paused at the edge of the sidewalk. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She placed one hand on her belly, grounding herself the way the prenatal nurse had taught her. Breathe in, count to 4, breathe out, count to 6. She wasn't here to make a scene. She was here to exist. Inside the lobby, chandeliers spilled golden light across marble floors. The sound of a string quartet drifted down from the ballroom upstairs. People moved around her without noticing at first until they did. A few glances lingered. Some curious, some uncomfortable. Elena recognized faces she had once smiled at across dinner tables. Wives who had complimented her home. Men who had shaken Victor's hand and congratulated him on building such a solid life. None of them approached her. She expected that. Near the far end of the lobby, Daniel stood beside a column, phone in hand, looking like any other guest waiting for someone. Noah was nowhere in sight, exactly as planned. Elena squared her shoulders and stepped forward. Up the grand staircase, past the velvet ropes, into the ballroom. The room was full. Crystal glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. At the center of it all stood Victor Langford, smiling effortlessly, one hand resting lightly on Madeline's bare back. She wore deep red, her posture confident, her head tilted just enough to suggest ownership. They looked perfect. For a moment, the old pain flared sharp and familiar. Then Victor saw her. His smile froze, just for a fraction of a second. Enough. Madeline followed his gaze. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to irritation, then smoothed into something cool and amused. Elena didn't rush. She didn't scan the room. She didn't look for allies or exits. She simply walked. A low murmur rippled through the crowd as recognition spread. Whispers followed her path, quiet but unmistakable. That's her. I thought she left. She's pregnant. Victor stepped forward, intercepting her before she reached the center of the room. His voice was low, controlled. What are you doing here? He hissed, his smile still fixed in place for the cameras. Elena met his eyes. Her voice was calm. I was invited. That's not true. She tilted her head slightly. Isn't it? Madeline moved closer, her tone sweet but sharp. This really isn't appropriate, Elena. You should go home. Elena looked at her slowly. I am home, she said, in my city, in my life. Victor's hand tightened at his side. Let's talk privately, he said through clenched teeth. before you embarrass yourself." Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back. She smiled faintly. "I'm not the one who should be worried about that." And for the first time that night, Victor Langford looked unsure. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Music played, glasses clinked, laughter drifted through the ballroom as if the tension standing between Elena and Victor were invisible. But beneath the polished surface, something had shifted. People were watching now. Not openly, not obviously, but enough. Victor leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You need to leave," he said, his smile tight. "Right now." Elena didn't move. "You don't get to decide that anymore." Madeline exhaled sharply, irritation flashing across her face before she masked it. "This is becoming embarrassing," she said. "For everyone." She stepped closer, invading Elena's space. Too close. Elena took a small step back, instinctively protecting her stomach. "Please," she said evenly, "give me some room." Madeline's lips curved into a thin smile. "Don't be dramatic." And then, it happened. Not a shove anyone could call violent, not enough to send Elena flying, just a sharp, deliberate push to the shoulder, quick, precise, meant to assert dominance, not to cause harm. But Elena's balance was already compromised. Her heels slipped on the polished marble. The room tilted violently as a gasp rippled through the crowd. For one terrifying moment, gravity took over. Elena felt her body tipping backward. She never hit the floor. Strong hands caught her from behind, steadying her before she could fall. Her breath came out in a sob as the pain shot through her lower back, sharp and immediate. Enough. The voice was calm, firm, and loud enough to cut through the music. "Noah." He stood behind her now, one arm braced at her back, the other raised slightly, not touching Madeline, but making it unmistakably clear that she had crossed a line. Several heads turned. Phones came out. The string quartet faltered, then stopped. Victor's face drained of color. "Who the hell are you?" he snapped. Noah didn't answer him. Instead, Daniel stepped forward from the side of the room, his presence measured, his expression unreadable. "This event has just witnessed the physical endangerment of a pregnant woman," he said calmly. "That tends to complicate things." Madeline laughed nervously. "Oh, please," she tripped. Elena straightened slowly, her hand shaking as she pressed it against her belly. The baby moved thankfully, unmistakably. She lifted her head and spoke clearly. "You pushed me." The words landed harder than a scream. A woman near the front whispered, "Did you see that?" Victor forced a laugh. Too loud, too sharp. "This is ridiculous. She's unstable. Everyone knows that." Daniel met his eyes. "Careful," he said. "Defamation doesn't play well in public." The room had gone completely silent now. Elena's heart pounded, fear surging, but it was different than before. It wasn't paralyzing, it was clarifying. She wasn't the one causing a scene. They were. Security began to move closer, uncertain, glancing between Victor and the brothers. Victor took a step back, recalculating. And in that moment, Elena understood something with absolute certainty. This night was no longer under his control. The silence in the ballroom stretched so long it became uncomfortable. Security hovered near the edge of the crowd, uncertain who they were supposed to protect. Guests stood frozen with champagne glasses halfway to their lips. Phones remained raised, recording everything. The moment had slipped out of Victor's hands, and everyone could feel it. Daniel took one slow step forward. "I'd like to clarify something," he said calmly, his voice carrying without effort. "My sister didn't come here to disrupt your evening. She came here because she was forced out of her home, stripped of her finances, and left without medical coverage while 7 months pregnant." Victor scoffed. "That's a lie." Daniel didn't look at him. Instead, he turned slightly, addressing the room. "My name is Daniel Hart. I'm a financial litigation attorney, and I don't make claims without documentation." A ripple moved through the crowd. Victor's jaw tightened. "This is a private matter." "No," Daniel replied evenly. "It stopped being private the moment you endangered a pregnant woman in a public space." Madeline shifted uncomfortably, her smile finally gone. "This is insane," she muttered. "Why are you letting him talk?" Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Because what comes next is relevant to every institution represented in this room." That got attention. He tapped the screen once, then lifted it slightly so those nearest could hear. Victor's voice filled the air. "She's emotional right now. I just need her calm enough to sign the revised document. After that, it doesn't matter where she stays." A murmur surged through the room. Daniel paused the audio. "That recording was taken legally," he said. "One-party consent, and it's only the beginning." Victor lunged forward a step. "Turn that off." Daniel finally met his eyes. "Or what?" The tension was sharp enough to cut. Daniel continued, unfazed. "This gala is sponsored in part by financial institutions who approved loans based on Mr. Langford's representation of a stable household and ethical conduct. I would strongly suggest those institutions reconsider." Brazid, a man near the front, frowned and whispered urgently to his companion. Noah stepped forward now, holding a tablet. "There's more," he said quietly. "Email correspondence, insurance cancellation logs, bank freeze timestamps." Elena stood still, heart racing, watching as her life was laid bare piece by piece. This wasn't chaos, this was precision. Victor laughed harshly. "You think this proves anything? She's unstable, she's manipulating you all." Elena lifted her chin. Her voice was clear. "You canceled my insurance 2 days before you threw me out. You froze our account before I had anywhere to go. And you let your girlfriend put her hands on me." A woman near the back whispered, "Oh my God." Daniel nodded. "And for the record," he added, "any further statements implying mental instability will be documented." Security stepped closer to Victor, now not Elena. Victor's face had gone pale. The room buzzed with low voices, speculation, discomfort. Elena felt something loosen inside her chest. For the first time, the truth wasn't just hers. It was public, and Victor Langford was running out of places to hide. The first thing Victor Langford noticed was the sound, or rather, the lack of it. The string quartet had stopped playing entirely. The soft hum of conversation that usually filled a room like this had vanished. What remained was an uneasy stillness, broken only by the faint buzz of phones recording and the quiet shuffle of security repositioning themselves. One of them stepped closer to Victor. "Sir," the guard said politely, "we need you to come with us for a moment." Victor stared at him in disbelief. "Excuse me?" "There's been a disturbance," the guard continued, "and concerns raised by multiple guests." Victor laughed sharply. "This is my event." The guard didn't flinch. "It's a private venue." That was when it happened. The microphone on the stage, still warm from Victor's earlier remarks, was quietly turned off. A small detail, almost invisible, but everyone saw it. Madeline's hand tightened around her clutch. "Victor," she whispered, "what's going on?" He didn't answer her. Across the room, a man in a dark suit, one of the senior sponsors, leaned toward a hotel coordinator and spoke in a low, urgent tone. Another guest stepped away to take a call. Then another. The ripple had started. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "For clarity," he said evenly, "we've already forwarded the relevant materials to the appropriate parties." Victor's eyes snapped to him. "You did what?" "Bank compliance departments," Noah added calmly. "Insurance oversight. A courtesy heads up." Victor took a step back, his smile cracking. "You can't do that." "We already did," Daniel replied. Elena watched Victor's face change, not with rage, but with fear. Real fear. The kind that came when a man realized his power depended entirely on other people believing in him. A woman near the front shook her head slowly. "I can't believe this." Madeline's voice rose, sharp and panicked. "This is ridiculous. You're all overreacting." A hotel manager approached, flanked by 2 more security guards. "Mr. Langford," she said professionally, "we're going to ask you to step away from the floor while we assess the situation." Victor's mouth opened, closed. Cameras zoomed in. Elena felt her knees tremble, but she stayed standing. Daniel shifted slightly closer to her, not touching, just present. Victor glanced around, searching for an ally, for a friendly face, for someone to laugh this off with him. There were none. "This is harassment," Victor said weakly. "No," Daniel replied. "This is consequence." The guards gestured again, firmer this time. Victor straightened his jacket, jaw clenched, and allowed himself to be escorted toward a side exit. As he passed Elena, their eyes met. For the first time that night, he didn't look superior. He looked small. Madeline stood frozen, abandoned in the center of the room, suddenly unsure where she belonged. As the doors closed behind Victor, the room exhaled. Whispers erupted. Phones lowered. Conversations resumed, but nothing was the same. Elena let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She hadn't shouted, she hadn't begged. And yet, Victor Langford had just been removed from his own stage. Madeline Cross stood alone beneath the chandeliers, suddenly too visible. Moments ago, she had been glowing arm candy to a powerful man. The future everyone assumed was already secured. Now the space beside her was empty, and the absence felt louder than any accusation. Conversations restarted around her, but none included her anymore. She had become an object of curiosity, then suspicion. She smoothed the front of her dress, lifting her chin as if that might restore control. "It's all being exaggerated," she said sharply to no one in particular. "Victor will clear this up." A woman nearby raised an eyebrow. "Clear what up?" Madeline turned. "The misunderstanding." Another voice chimed in, quieter but colder. "You pushed her." Madeline froze. She stepped back. Phones were still out. Messages were being sent. Narratives were already forming, and for the first time, Madeline wasn't directing any of them. Elena watched from a distance, her body still tense, her hand resting lightly over her stomach. Daniel stood close, his attention split between the room and his phone, which continued to buzz with incoming notifications. Noah stepped back into view, tablet in hand. "Timing matters," he murmured to Daniel. Daniel nodded once. "Then let's not waste it." They didn't approach Madeline. They didn't need to. A man in a tailored gray suit, one of the gala's corporate partners, stepped directly in front of her. "Miss Cross," he said evenly. "We need to talk." Madeline's smile flickered. "About what?" "About the client list you accessed last quarter," he replied. "And the data transfer logs." Her color drained instantly. "That's confidential." "Yes," he said, "it is." Nearby, another guest leaned toward a colleague. "Isn't she the one who handled luxury accounts?" "I heard she freelanced," the colleague replied. "No, direct authorization." Madeline's voice rose. "Victor approved everything I did." Daniel finally looked up. "That's interesting," he said calmly, "because Victor Langford no longer represents himself." The words landed hard. Madeline turned sharply toward Elena, fury breaking through the polished exterior. "You did this," she snapped. "You ruined everything." Elena met her gaze steadily. "You helped." Madeline laughed, brittle and high. "You think this ends well for you? You think you've won?" Elena didn't answer right away. She felt the baby shift, a slow, steady reminder of why she was here. "I didn't come to win," she said quietly. "I came to stop letting you lie about me." Madeline opened her mouth to respond, but another voice cut in. "Miss Cross," said a hotel representative, approaching with 2 security staff, "we need to ask you to leave the premises." Ovation. Integration. Her eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "We are," the woman replied. "Effective immediately." Madeline looked around, desperate for support. None came. As she was escorted toward the exit alone, heels clicking too loudly against the marble, Elena felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. The woman who had smiled while she was thrown out into the rain had just been stripped of her audience. And this time, no one rushed to save her. By the next morning, Victor Langford was fighting for air. Not physically, socially. Elena learned this while sitting at Daniel's kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. Her body was exhausted from the night before, adrenaline still burning low in her veins, but her mind was painfully clear. Daniel scrolled through his phone, expression unreadable. "He's counterattacking," he said finally. Elena looked up. "How?" "Same way men like him always do," Daniel replied. "He's questioning your stability." Noah leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "He's telling anyone who will listen that you had an emotional episode. That the pregnancy made you unpredictable. That he was afraid for his safety." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Of course he is." Daniel turned the phone so she could see. A message thread. Carefully worded emails. Subtle, polite, dangerous. Victor wasn't denying the confrontation at the gala. He was reframing it. Concerned husband. Mentally fragile wife. Unfortunate public misunderstanding. "He's laying groundwork," Daniel said. "In case this goes to court." Elena swallowed. "So he still thinks he can win." "He thinks he can exhaust you," Noah replied. "Make you look unreliable. Make people hesitate to support you." Elena pressed her palm against her belly. grounding herself as a slow wave of anger rose, not explosive, but steady. I spent years shrinking myself so he wouldn't feel threatened, she said quietly. I won't do that again. Daniel studied her. You understand what this means? Yes, Elena answered without hesitation. He wants me silent. Noah nodded. And silence would help him. Daniel reached for his laptop and opened a folder. Good thing we're not staying silent. He turned the screen toward her. A timeline. Dates, bank actions, insurance cancellation. The exact hour Victor had locked the accounts. The exact hour he had sent the email inviting Madeline to co-host the gala. This, Daniel said, is intent. Elena's breath caught. You can prove that? We already are, Daniel replied. And there's more. Noah stepped forward. Victor contacted your OB clinic last month. Asked about stress-related complications. Not to help you. Elena's blood ran cold. Then why? To build a narrative, Noah said. That you were unstable before he pushed you out. The room fell quiet. For a moment, Elena felt the familiar urge to retreat, to apologize, to disappear. Then she remembered the rain, the locked door, the baby moving inside her when she almost fell. No, she said firmly. He doesn't get to do that to me. Or my child. Daniel closed the laptop. Then we respond. How? Elena asked. With facts, Daniel said. With records, with witnesses. Noah met her eyes. And with you staying visible. Elena nodded slowly. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. Victor Langford was telling his last lie. And this time, Elena Hart was ready to stand in the truth while it collapsed around him. The voicemail came just after midnight. Elena was lying awake on Daniel's couch, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping her phone. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw marble floors rushing toward her, heard the hush of the crowd, felt Victor's gaze trying to shrink her back into silence. Her phone buzzed softly. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. Something told her not to. She pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then her own voice filled the room, thin and shaking, recorded days earlier without her realizing it had been saved. Victor, it's me, the voice said. Please call me back. Elena's chest tightened. I don't need to argue, the voicemail continued. I just need my insurance card. The doctor said I can't miss my medication. I'm scared. I don't want anything to happen to the baby. There was a pause. A long one. Then Victor's voice, distant and irritated. I'm in a meeting. I can't deal with this right now. The line went dead. Elena dropped the phone as if it had burned her. The sound of her own fear, raw, unfiltered, cracked, something open inside her. She pressed her knuckles to her mouth, trying to keep quiet, but the sob tore out of her anyway. Her shoulders shook, her breathing came apart. Noah appeared in the doorway without a word and sat beside her. He didn't touch her at first. He just stayed. When her sobs grew harsher, he placed a steady hand on her back. Daniel joined them silently, his expression unreadable. I begged him, Elena whispered hoarsely. I begged him for medicine. For our child. Daniel's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have had to. But I did, she said. And he still chose himself. Her body curled inward, grief washing over her in waves. Grief for the marriage she thought she had. Grief for the woman she used to be, the one who believed love would protect her. Noah spoke softly. Elena, listen to me. This voicemail isn't proof that you're weak. She shook her head, tears streaming. It feels like it. It's proof, Daniel said firmly, that you tried to survive. 18, 23, 24. Dieter. Elena clutched her stomach as the baby shifted gently beneath her hand. The movement grounded her, pulled her back into the present. I let him decide everything, she whispered. I trusted him, with my body, with my life. Daniel knelt in front of her. You trusted someone you loved. That isn't failure. Elena lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were red, but something new flickered there, clarity sharpened by pain. That voicemail, she said quietly. It's not private, is it? Daniel shook his head. No, it's evidence. Elena wiped her face, drawing a shaky breath. Then use it. Noah nodded. Are you sure? She placed both hands over her belly, feeling steady movement. I won't let my child grow up thinking this is what love looks like. The pain was still there. It always would be. But in that moment, Elena stopped breaking. and started choosing. The courthouse on Center Street didn't look dramatic. That surprised Elena. She had expected towering columns, echoing footsteps, something that felt as heavy as the moment itself. Instead, it was quiet. Fluorescent lights, wooden benches, the low murmur of other lives unraveling in parallel rooms. Still, her hands trembled as Daniel guided her to a seat. "This is temporary," he reminded her softly. "An emergency hearing. Support, housing, medical coverage, not the final battle." "Vorsti grasto." Elena nodded, one hand resting over her belly, the other gripping the strap of her bag. The baby kicked lightly, as if sensing her tension. Across the room, Victor Langford entered with his attorney. He looked different. Not polished, not confident. His suit was expensive, but it sat stiffly on him, like armor worn too late. When he saw Elena, something flickered in his eyes, surprise, then irritation, then calculation. He hadn't expected her to show up this steady. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then sat. "Mrs. Hart," the judge began, scanning the file. "This is a petition for emergency spousal and prenatal support, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Daniel replied. Victor's attorney cleared his throat. "We contest the necessity. My client maintains that his wife voluntarily left the marital residence and—" Daniel stood immediately. "We have evidence to the contrary." The judge raised a hand. "Proceed." Daniel didn't rush. He never did. He laid out the timeline. The account freeze. The insurance cancellation. The voicemail Elena had received and saved. He submitted the recording. The room filled again with Elena's shaking voice, followed by Victor's indifference. Victor stared straight ahead. "This," Daniel said calmly, "occurred 48 hours before my client was forced out of her home." The judge's expression hardened. Victor's attorney tried again. Mr. Langford was concerned about his wife's emotional state. Daniel nodded, "which is why he removed her access to medical care." Silence. The judge turned to Victor. "Mr. Langford, did you cancel your wife's insurance while she was 7 months pregnant?" Victor shifted. "I was advised." "Yes or no?" "Yes," he said quietly. Elena felt her chest tighten, but she didn't look away. The judge leaned back. "That was reckless." Daniel continued. "We're requesting immediate reinstatement of medical coverage, temporary housing support, and a no-contact order pending further review." Victor's attorney whispered urgently to him. The judge looked at Elena. "Mrs. Hart, are you afraid of your husband?" Elena swallowed, then spoke clearly. "I'm afraid of what he's willing to do to protect himself." The judge nodded once. "I'm granting the emergency order," she said. "Medical coverage reinstated immediately. Temporary support awarded. Mr. Langford, you are not to contact your wife outside of counsel." Victor's face drained of color. The gavel struck softly. Elena exhaled a deep, shaking breath she'd been holding for weeks. It wasn't victory, but it was safety. And for the first time since the rain-soaked night she was thrown out, Elena walked out of a room knowing the ground beneath her feet was finally solid. Victor Langford lost control quietly. There was no dramatic arrest. No headlines screaming his name across the morning news. Just a series of doors closing one after another so fast he barely had time to understand what was happening. Elena learned about it in pieces. Daniel was the first to call. 2 banks just froze his credit lines, he said calmly. Compliance reviews, temporary but devastating. Elena sat at the small kitchen table in the apartment Daniel had arranged for her, sunlight spilling through the window. She felt the baby move beneath her palm and waited for the rush of triumph she thought should come. It didn't. "What about the properties?" she asked. Daniel exhaled. "Under scrutiny, turns out some of his valuations were optimistic." Noah filled in the rest that evening. "They're looking at insurance fraud," he said, setting his jacket down. "Backdated claims, inconsistent reporting, nothing explosive yet but enough to scare everyone attached to him." Elena closed her eyes. She pictured Victor pacing his penthouse, phone pressed to his ear, charm failing him for the first time. Investors asking questions he couldn't smooth over, lawyers advising silence instead of strategy. And Madeline, Elena hadn't thought much about her since the gala until her name appeared in Daniel's messages. "She's done," Daniel said simply. Elena looked up. "Done how?" "Blacklisted," Noah replied. 3 firms confirmed she accessed proprietary client lists without authorization. Victor's name is all over the approval chain, but she's the one holding the files. Elena felt a flicker of something, not satisfaction, but inevitability. She tried to call me, Noah added. Wanted to explain. Elena shook her head slowly. I don't want to hear it. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching headlights move through the streets below, thinking about how close she had come to disappearing. How easily Victor had almost succeeded. Her phone buzzed. Victor. A message this time. No call. We need to talk. This has gone too far. Elena stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, another message came through. She's threatening me. She says she'll expose everything if I don't help her. Elena felt her chest tighten, but not with fear. With clarity. She typed one sentence. Please contact my attorney. Then she blocked the number. Across the city, Victor Langford sat alone in his penthouse, staring at a skyline that no longer answered to him. The silence he once controlled now swallowed him whole. Madeline sat in a different apartment, lights off, phone in her hand, realizing the man she had trusted to protect her had already let go. And Elena lay back on her bed, one hand resting over her stomach, the other steady on the mattress. The chaos was still unfolding. Consequences didn't arrive all at once. But for the first time, they weren't chasing her. They were catching him. The apartment was quiet in a way Elena hadn't felt in years. Not the heavy silence of tension or waiting, but a softer kind, one that settled instead of pressed down. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains, touching the edges of the room without demanding anything from her. No ringing phone. No schedule dictated by someone else's priorities. Elena sat at the small kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a mug of tea, watching steam rise and disappear. For the first time, no one was rushing her. The doctor had insisted she slow down. More rest, less stress, daily walks. Elena followed the instructions carefully now, not out of fear, but respect for herself and the life growing inside her. Later that morning, she walked through Central Park with measured steps, the city humming around her without pulling her under. Leaves rustled softly in the breeze. Joggers passed. Parents pushed strollers. Life, ordinary and stubborn, continued. Elena placed a hand on her belly and breathed. She thought about how much of herself she had lost trying to keep Victor calm. How she had learned to soften her voice, to apologize before being accused, to swallow discomfort because peace seemed easier than truth. Now, peace felt different. It felt earned. At a bench near the path, she sat down slowly and opened her Kindle. The screen glowed faintly as she reread a few lines she had bookmarked the night before. Not for inspiration, just for grounding. A reminder that endurance didn't mean surrender. Her phone buzzed once. Daniel. How are you feeling? She typed back, tired, but okay. That answer would have worried her once. Now it felt honest. Back at the apartment, Noah stopped by with groceries. He didn't comment on her quiet. He simply stocked the fridge, made sure the essentials were there, and left without fuss. In the afternoon, Elena opened her laptop and updated her resume. She didn't apply for jobs yet. She wasn't ready, but she reminded herself that she still had skills. Taste. A mind that worked. A future that wasn't limited to surviving someone else. As evening approached, she stood in the bathroom, studying her reflection. Her face was thinner, her eyes older. But there was steadiness there now, something she hadn't seen in a long time. She wasn't healed. But she was healing. That night, lying in bed, Elena felt the baby shift and roll, strong and insistent. She smiled softly, tears pricking her eyes not from pain, but from relief. I'm here, she whispered. I stayed. Outside, the city lights flickered on, one by one. Somewhere across Manhattan, Victor Langford was still trying to hold together the pieces of a life that no longer fit him. Elena didn't think about that. She focused on the steady rhythm of her breathing, on the quiet, on the knowledge that for the first time in a long while, she was no longer running. She was resting. Victor Langford showed up at the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon. Elena had just finished a routine prenatal checkup. She was sitting on a bench near the elevators, one hand resting on her belly, flipping absently through appointment notes on her phone. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee, the sounds of carts and distant voices echoing softly. She sensed him before she saw him. The shift in the air. The hesitation of footsteps behind her. Elena. She closed her eyes briefly, then turned. Victor stood a few feet away, hands shoved into the pockets of his coat. He looked thinner, tired. His hair was slightly out of place, his posture less controlled than she remembered. The man who once commanded rooms now looked like someone waiting for permission to speak. "I asked you not to contact me directly," Elena said calmly. "I know," he replied. I needed to see you." She stood slowly, keeping distance between them. "You have 5 minutes." Victor swallowed. "I messed up." The words hung there, small and inadequate. "You don't say," Elena replied. "I didn't think it would go this far," he continued. "Everything spiraled. The banks, the reviews. Madeline turning on me." He shook his head. "I lost control." Elena studied his face, searching for something: remorse, accountability, anything real. What she found instead was fear. "You didn't lose control," she said quietly. "You made choices." Victor stepped closer. "I was under pressure. I panicked. I never wanted to hurt you." Elena laughed softly, not cruelly, sadly. "You canceled my medical insurance while I was pregnant," she said. "You threw me out at midnight. You tried to make me disappear." Victor's voice cracked. "I'm sorry." The word arrived late and hollow. "I thought if you came back that night," he said, "we could fix it. I could protect us." "No," Elena said firmly. "You wanted to protect yourself." He looked down. "Maybe, but we have a child. Don't they deserve both parents?" Elena felt the familiar ache, but it didn't pull her under anymore. "Our child deserves honesty," she said. "And safety, not excuses." "As important?" Victor reached out instinctively, then stopped himself. "I'll do whatever you want," he said. "Counseling, mediation, I'll make it right." Elena shook her head. "You can't make this right. You can only respect what comes next." She took a step back. "All communication goes through my attorney. You'll have access to your child according to the court, nothing more, nothing less." Victor's eyes filled with something close to desperation. "You're really done?" "Yes," Elena replied. "I finished when I stopped begging." She turned toward the elevator. As the doors slid open, she looked back once, not with anger, but clarity. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's boundaries." The doors closed softly between them. Victor Langford stood alone in the hallway, watching the reflection of himself disappear in the metal doors. And for the first time, he understood that some losses could not be negotiated. Elena's son was born just before sunrise. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of a monitor and the soft rustle of nurses moving in and out. Outside the window, Manhattan was waking up, lights flickering off, traffic beginning its slow pulse, but inside the room, time felt suspended. When they placed him in her arms, small and warm and unmistakably real, Elena broke down in a way she hadn't allowed herself to before. Not from fear, not from grief, from release. Daniel stood near the window, his back turned, giving her privacy. Noah hovered awkwardly near the door, blinking too fast, pretending he had something in his eye. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. "You're safe," Elena whispered to her son. "I promise." In the weeks that followed, life didn't magically become perfect. There were sleepless nights. Legal paperwork, co-parenting schedules handled strictly through attorneys. Victor complied quietly, carefully, now a man permanently aware of consequences. Madeline faded into obscurity, her career derailed, her ambition finally costing her something real. Justice hadn't screamed. It had settled. Elena moved into a modest apartment with sunlight in the mornings and a park just down the block. She took long walks with the stroller, learned which cafes didn't mind lingering, memorized the rhythm of her son's breathing as they slept. One afternoon, during a follow-up appointment, she ran into Dr. Lucas Reed again, the obstetrician who had insisted on documenting every irregularity when her insurance had mysteriously vanished. The one who had quietly helped Daniel retrieve records when no one else would. They talked. At first, only about the baby, then about books, about work, about how strange it felt to start over in the same city that once swallowed her whole. He didn't rush her. Months passed. Elena returned to work part-time, consulting on small interior projects. Nothing glamorous, nothing flashy, but it was hers. Each paycheck felt like a declaration. I exist. I decide. And slowly, gently, something unexpected grew. Not dependency. Choice. On a crisp autumn morning, Lucas stood with her in Central Park, her son bundled against her chest, leaves crunching underfoot. There was no grand speech, no dramatic gesture. Just a simple question, asked with respect. Would you like to build something together? Elena looked at the man beside her, steady, kind, unafraid of her past, and then down at the child she had fought so hard to protect. Yes, she said. Their wedding was small. No headlines, no spectacle. Just family, close friends, and a quiet joy that felt earned rather than borrowed. Elena didn't win by becoming richer, louder, or colder. She won by surviving with her integrity intact, by choosing truth over fear, by building a life that no one could take from her again. And somewhere, far from the warmth she created, Victor Langford lived with the knowledge that the woman he tried to erase had become the proof of his greatest failure and his most lasting consequence. So, the story has come to an end. And if you're still here with us right now, there's a good chance something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it wasn't the betrayal, or the revenge, or even the justice. Maybe it was the moment Elena stopped begging and started choosing herself. And that matters. Stories like this remind us of a simple but powerful truth the Stoics taught centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Elena couldn't control what was done to her, but she could control how she responded. That's where her healing began. Life doesn't always reward us with loud victories. Sometimes it rewards us with peace, boundaries, and the courage to walk away. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And that lesson isn't just for stories. It's for real life. For your life. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel a little stronger inside, then it did its job. And if you're still here, it means you're the kind of person who feels deeply, and that's a gift. So take a moment, like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this are waiting for you. You're not alone, and you're stronger than you think.